subscribe to my YouTube channel, because what you're about to hear isn't just a story. It's a storm of love, betrayal, pain, and rising from the ashes. It was raining the night he left. Not the gentle kind that calms your soul, but the harsh, cold kind that hits your skin like needles. I remember standing at the door, holding our daughter, and watching my husband of 10 years, pack his bags like he'd been waiting for this moment forever. No tears, no hesitation, just a cold goodbye. "You'll never make it without me," he said, as he looked at me like I was just another failed chapter in his life. "You? With a child, chasing music. Don't embarrass yourself." I couldn't even answer, not because I didn't want to, but because my voice refused to come out, and maybe deep down, I feared he was right. I was a stay-at-home mom with forgotten dreams, living in his shadow for a decade. Music used to be my everything. Before marriage, before motherhood, before I started shrinking to fit into his world. He walked out that night without once looking back, left me with a 3-year-old daughter, unpaid bills, and a heart that felt like it had been hollowed out. No warning, no explanation, just gone. And within weeks, there was another woman, younger, flashier, someone who had nothing to do with his struggle years. Someone who didn't carry stretch marks or sleepless nights. For a while, I broke, not just emotionally, but physically. I'd stare at the piano in our living room, dusty, untouched, and feel something ache inside me. That piano was the last piece of me, before everything became about him. My daughter Lily was the only reason I kept moving. Every time she'd tug my sleeve and ask if Daddy was coming back, I'd force a smile and lie. "He's just busy." I hated myself for it. But how do you explain to a toddler that the man who once called her his little princess had walked away like she never mattered? Then one day, Lily asked something different. She said, "Mommy, can you sing me the song you used to hum? When I was in your tummy, I froze." I hadn't thought about that melody in years. But that night, I sat by her bed and sang it, softly, carefully, like touching something fragile. And when I finished, she looked at me with wide eyes and said, "Mommy, your voice is magic." That night, something in me shifted. I dusted off the piano the next morning. My fingers stumbled at first, but muscle memory is funny. It never forgets what the heart can't let go. I started writing again, singing, recording, not for fame, not for revenge, just for me, just to breathe again. But life doesn't get easier just because you decide to chase your dream. There were nights I had to choose between buying groceries or paying for studio time. I recorded songs in my car, in closets, even in a friend's bathroom, because the acoustics were better there. I performed at bars where drunk people barely noticed I was on stage. I got laughed at, ignored, rejected, and then one video changed everything. It was a raw acoustic song I wrote for Lily called "When You Miss Me." I uploaded it with 0 expectations. It had no filters, no edits, just me, my voice, and a cracked heart. Within days, it went viral. People from everywhere left comments saying the song made them cry, that it felt like their story too. Record labels started calling, talk shows, collaborations. Suddenly, people wanted to know who this woman was, who sang like she'd lived 1,000 lives. But they didn't know the real story behind the music. They didn't know every lyric came from nights I cried on the kitchen floor or held my daughter close while pretending everything was okay. And just when I thought I was finally standing tall again, he came back, my ex-husband, the same man who said I'd never make it. He showed up backstage one night after I performed at a sold-out arena. Same smug smile, but his eyes, they weren't cold anymore. They looked lost. "I made a mistake," he said, as if that erased 10 years of love and 3 years of silence. And do you want to know the worst part? For a split second, I wanted to believe him, because part of me still remembered the man I married. The promises, the laughter, the nights we stayed up dreaming of a future. But that version of him died the night he left. Now, I was the one with choices. But before I could speak, Lily walked into the room. She saw him. He saw her. And in that moment, everything changed. She didn't run into his arms. She just looked at him and said something that silenced the entire room. But I won't tell you what she said. Not yet, because this story isn't just about a woman rising from betrayal. It's about what happens when the person who broke you wants a seat at your table again, after you rebuilt it from scratch. Lily looked at him with a calmness far too grown for her age. Her little hands clutched the drawing she had made backstage, her eyes fixed on the man who had once been her whole world. And then, without blinking, she said, "Mom doesn't cry because of you anymore." That was it. No screaming, no dramatic reunion, just that one sentence. And somehow, it said everything. He looked shaken, like he wasn't prepared for her to remember him, let alone speak to him like that. I stood there frozen, not out of fear, but because I finally realized I didn't need his apology anymore. I wasn't waiting for him to come back. I wasn't singing to prove anything to him. I was doing it for Lily, for myself, for the girl I used to be before love blinded me. But the world doesn't just sit back and clap when you rise. With every step forward, new challenges appeared. Old interviews surfaced, ones where I had been raw, broken, emotional. Some tabloids started twisting the narrative, calling me the heartbroken singer who used pain for profit. Others speculated that I was using Lily's story for sympathy. It hurt, but not the way his betrayal had. Because now, I wasn't alone. I had fans who believed in me, a team, a purpose. Still, there was one person I hadn't been able to face, my mother. She had warned me 10 years ago. She saw the red flags in him when I was too busy being in love. And when he left, I couldn't bear the "I told you so" in her eyes. I hadn't spoken to her in almost 3 years, but Lily missed her. And when I finally gathered the courage to visit, I stood at the gate, holding my daughter's hand, heart racing like I was 17 again. Mom opened the door slowly. Her face had aged, softer eyes, fewer words. But the moment she saw Lily, she broke into tears. No accusations, no bitterness, just arms wide open. That night, she held me like she used to when I was a child with scraped knees. I was angry, she whispered. Not because you chose him, but because you forgot yourself. That stayed with me. Meanwhile, something else was brewing. My ex-husband's new relationship had fallen apart. The same woman he had left us for had moved on the moment his money dried up. He tried to revive his business, but the market had shifted. New players, tough competition. His name didn't carry the same weight anymore. And with my rising fame, the media started painting a different picture, one where he wasn't the successful one. That bothered him more than anything. He started showing up more often, not for Lily, but for himself, offering to help manage my brand, saying he knew how the industry worked. At first, I ignored him, but one day he crossed a line. He showed up at Lily's school unannounced, told her he wanted to be part of her life again. She came home confused, angry. She said, "Why now? Why when mommy's finally happy?" That was the moment I knew I had to protect our peace. So, I did something I had avoided for a long time. I shared the truth, not on a talk show, not through a song, but in a quiet post, with no edits, just words from my heart. I talked about the nights I couldn't sleep because the bills wouldn't stop coming, about singing lullabies with tears in my throat, about writing songs on napkins while Lily napped on my lap. I didn't name him. I didn't drag anyone down. I just told my story, raw, honest, and real. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of women wrote back. Some said they were still stuck. Some said they had just escaped. Some said they finally believed they could try again. And then, something unexpected happened. A famous music producer messaged me privately. He said he had followed my journey for months, that my lyrics carried something most artists couldn't. Fake, truth. He offered me the opportunity to write the title track for an upcoming international film, something that could catapult my music far beyond what I had ever imagined. I said yes, but I didn't realize the song would be about lost love, regret, and second chances. Writing it forced me to relive everything, the good, the ugly, the parts I had buried so deep, I forgot they were there. I spent nights staring at the ceiling, wondering how I could pour that much emotion into a song without breaking again. And just as I finished the final verse, I got a call. It was my ex. His voice was shaky. His company had gone bankrupt. He was being sued. He had no one left to turn to. I have nothing, he said. I listened, quietly. For once, I wasn't angry, just sad, because he hadn't just lost his business. He had lost himself. And then he asked the one thing I didn't expect. Do you think we could try again? For Lily's sake? I looked at Lily, sleeping peacefully beside me, her drawings on the wall, her laughter still ringing in the hallways, and in that moment, I knew my answer, but I didn't say it yet. Because that's where the real climax begins. And trust me, you're going to want to hear how it all unfolds in the next part. I looked at the phone in my hand, his voice still echoing in my ears. Do you think we could try again? For Lily's sake. For a moment, the silence around me felt deafening. It wasn't anger I felt, not even sadness anymore. It was clarity, the kind that comes after you've walked through fire and realized you didn't burn. You rebuilt. I gently ended the call without giving him an answer. Some things didn't need to be said out loud. And some doors, once shut, need to stay that way. The next morning, Lily ran into my arms, holding a crumpled sheet of paper. I wrote a song. Mommy, can you sing it with me? My heart melted. I picked her up and spun her around, her laughter filling the room like music. That's when I realized my happy ending wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about proving anything to the man who walked away. It was about choosing joy, choosing healing, and building a life where my daughter could grow up surrounded by love that never leaves. The big international film deal became a turning point. When the song released, it struck a chord with audiences everywhere. The lyrics, about losing someone you thought you'd never survive without, only to find your own strength, resonated deeply. It topped charts for weeks. Fans messaged me, saying it gave them courage to move on from their own heartbreaks. The love pouring in from around the world made me realize the pain I once carried was never in vain. I had turned it into something beautiful. Meanwhile, Lily's bond with my mum grew stronger. Every weekend, they baked cookies and played piano together. I watched them, heart full, knowing that the love my daughter received now was the kind I always dreamed she'd have. Safe, steady, real, and my ex, he tried reaching out a few more times. I kept my replies polite, short, not bitter, just firm. He wasn't a villain in my story anymore, just a chapter that had ended. He had made his choices, and I had made mine. The difference was, I chose to keep going. One night, I was invited to speak at a women's event, a room full of single moms, aspiring artists, women fighting to find their voice again. I stood on that stage, not as someone who had all the answers, but as someone who had walked through heartbreak, betrayal, loneliness, and survived. I thought being left meant I wasn't enough, I told them. But it turned out to be the start of finding myself again. My husband walked away from 10 years of love and our child, but in that silence he left behind, I found my voice. I sang my way to healing, to peace, to stardom, not because I was special, but because I refused to let pain define me. The applause was soft at first, then grew louder. Filled with emotion, I stepped off the stage and hugged women who said they finally saw a way forward. That was the moment. I knew this was my real purpose. The fame, the music, the spotlight, all of it was a platform to reach people, to show them that no matter how dark it gets, healing is always possible. Starting over is possible. Now, when I look at Lily, I don't see a broken family. I see a new beginning, one built on truth, on resilience, and most of all, on love. Not the kind that fades when things get hard, but the kind that shows up every single day. So no, I never gave him an answer. I didn't need to. My life was the answer. A life filled with music, peace, and a daughter who would grow up knowing that strength doesn't come from never falling, but from always rising. And as the lights dim on this chapter and the final notes of my latest song play, I hope this story reminds someone out there. You're not alone. Your voice matters. Your healing matters. And sometimes, the greatest revenge is living well and singing louder than ever. Thank you for watching. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more powerful stories just like this. Your support means everything. Until next time, keep singing, keep healing, and never forget your worth.